Of course, that is what she can have, that no one can against me, so go on, that is what she can see, that I'm here. I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do if some of you cashes, of course, that is what she can have, that you have to do everything fine, of course. That is what she can have, of course, that is what she can see, that you work for me, but then you cash, okay, then let's go, then let's do it, of course, let's make it, of course, everyone needs its money, or we're gonna be all fucked in the streets, that is what she can have, so go on and make your cash, of course, that is what she can have, that no one can against us, of course. That is what she can say, of course. They are kidnapping kids from communist fathers and letting us in the street without money and with our ass turned red, of course. That is what she can have. What can we do against that? Just nothing, of course. That is what she can say. But if some of you cashes, then let's go. Of course, I'm gonna let them hear, of course. That is what she can say. You know, we're with the capital letters and that you have to let them both, of course, that is what she can have, that no one can against us, of course, that is what she can say, that no one can against us, of course, that is what she can say, that no one can against us, of course, they want our money, they want to reincarnate in our kids and things like those, of course, I'm gonna put them all in the backyard, of course, from my car, of course, that is what she can have, that no one can against us, of course, that is what you can say, of course, you know that, of course, you want some ching, you want some cheers, of course, that is what you can have, that no one can against us, so come on, of course. Of course, that is what you can have, that I have many bitches working for me, of course, and someday they are gonna cash, and it's okay, everyone needs his cash to don't be fucked in the streets, of course, so let's go, just do it, that is what you can have, of course, just make your cash, it's alright, it's okay, of course, that is what you can have, that I'm gonna make everything go fine, of course, that is what she can have, that I'm gonna put them in my car, that is what she can have, of course, that no one can against us, so come on, of course, that is what she can say, that no one can against us, so come on, of course, that is what she can have, that I'm gonna put them in the backyard from my car, of course, that is what she can have, that no one can against me, so come on, of course, that is what she can have, that got this kidnapping kids from communist fathers, of course, that is what she can have, and then they put us in place and throw us, of course, that is what she can have, that we got let us for diamonds, of course, that is what she can have, so go on, of course, that is what she can have, that I'm gonna let them out behind my car, that is what she can have, that no one can against me, so go on, of course, that is what she can have, that they all want my money, they all want to reincarnate in my kids, but I'm not gonna let them, that is what she can have, that no one can against us, of course, that is what she can say, that I'm gonna have everything I want, of course, that is what she can have, that they are after my money, but I'm not gonna give them a cent, that is what she can have. Of course, that is what you can see, that no one can against us, so come on, of course, that is what you can see, that no one can against me, if you can just do it, of course, that is what you can have, just do it, of course, that is what you can have. Of course, that is what she can have, that if some of you cashes, then let's go, then just have your money, that is what she can have, that no one can against us, so come on, of course, that is what she can say, that no one can against us, so come on, of course, that is what she can have, that I'm gonna put them in my car, of course, I'm gonna let them behind me, of course, you know that we're with capital letters, you have 20 letters, of course, and you have to let them both of them like curls. And as the fur, you have to let them both. So of course, that's what you can have to do. Capital letters here, and you have to let them behind. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against us. The letters with capital letters, of course, that is what you can have. You have to let them both of them. Of course, that it doesn't make sense that you will him them. That is what you can have. That no one can against us. Of course, that is what you can see. That they are just sitting down. Of course, that is what you can have. Of course, Paris is burning in the beach. Paris is burning in Notre Dame. So let's let them there. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against us. Of course, that you have to have in there capital letters. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against us. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against us. Of course, that you have to find the capital letters. That is what you can have, and let them both of them. That is what you can have. That the nest is burning. That is what you can have. So let them behind. Of course, that is what you can have. The Paris is burning in the beach. But every day when I come with a big gun, you have to find their capital letters and let them. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against us. That you have to let them in the front and back. Of course, find their capital letters and let them in the front and behind. Of course, that is what you can have. That it doesn't make sense that you keep there. That the mass is gone. Of course, the ass is gone. That is what you can have. That it doesn't make sense that you stay with them. That is what you can have. That you have to find the capital letters and let them. Of course, and if they come with the capital, you have to find the capital letters and let them. That is what you can have from the front and behind. You have to let them both. Of course, that is what you can have. Of course, that I come with my 732. Of course, that is what you can have. That no one can against me. It's like how. Of course, that is what you can have. That you have to let them both. Of course, that is what you can say. That no one can against us. Like how. Of course, that is what you can say. That if you have to cash, of course, that if you cash, just do it. That is what you can have. That everyone needs his money to don't affect us in the streets. That is what you can have, of course. So just do it. That is what you can have. That no one can against us, of course. But they are kidnapping kids from communist fighters all around the world. Of course, that is what you can have. That you have to find the 20 letters and let them. That is what you can have. You have to find the 20 letters and let my curse. And the different cross, of course, you have to let them both in the capital letters. So go on. That is what you can have. Of course, that Jesus Christ is kidnapping kids from communist fathers all around the world. Of course. That is what you can have. That no one can against us. So come on, of course, that is what you can see. That no one can against me. Of course, that they bring you my roses. Of course, that God is kidnapping kids from communist fighters all around the world. Of course, they bring you my roses. That is what you can have. Of course, God is kidnapping kids from communist fighters all around the world and letting us without nothing and letting the people like arrest in the streets. Of course, that is what you can have. That God is kidnapping kids from communist fighters all around the world and letting us with our ass fucked up in the streets. Of course, that is what you can have. That they bring you roses, of course, and you have to find the capital letters and let them both make rose and Lucifer Christ, Christopher. You have to let them both in the capital letters. Well, of course, that is what you can have. And some of you cautious then just go. Of course, that's what you can have to try to ride, but I'm gonna hide you right behind. Of course, that's what you can have to drinking against us. So come on, of course, that's what you can have to they are kidnapping kids from communist fighters and letting us live our ass fucked up in the streets. And of course, I pick you my roses, that's what you can have. So go on, of course. That is what you can say, that everything is gonna be fine. I love you, darling, kisses, and bye.